Welcome back. We're going to start with learning objective 2 now and preparing a balance sheet. The balance sheet is one of the three main financial statements that we'll be preparing. We'll get to where we're preparing all of them, but we're going to start with the balance sheet. The balance sheet lists what we call the financial position. In other words, the balance sheet shows the accounting equation. It's going to show us the assets, the liabilities, and the owner's equity. I want you to notice, star, highlight, underline this in your notes, that it tells us what the assets, liabilities, and owner's equity are on a particular date. So the balance sheet is prepared for one day and one day only. It's saying this is a snapshot of what we own, what we owe, and how much capital our owner has at this given point in time. So the balance sheet again follows that accounting equation. So we're going to have, typically you will see assets on the left, liabilities and owner's equity on the right. It can be prepared in what's called a report format, which is, think if you have a sheet of paper that you're showing portrait mode, like regular sheet paper, as opposed to horizontal or landscape mode. Since my slides are all landscape, we're going to show what's called the columnar report. It's not important that you know that, but that's where it has assets on the left and liabilities and equity on the right. If you show it the report format, you just have assets at the top, then liabilities, then owner's equity. So notice that we've listed our assets out individually. We don't just say all assets are $6,500. We list the assets individually, cash, then computer equipment at their value. So the cash is how much cash we have, but notice the computer equipment. This is listed at what we paid for it or what its historical cost was. So it's the $200 that it was valued at when the investor gave it to us, plus the $500 that we bought it at, plus the $300 that we bought it at. So anytime in an account, in a financial statement, pardon me, when you see a single line like this, a single line means subtotal. So here we see our single line, we've subtotaled, and then we've totaled all of our assets. We see it over here on this side as well. We have our single line to subtotal our liabilities and our equity. Then when we see the double underline at the end, this means we're done, we're finished, we're complete. It's like our clue that, oh, hey, this is totaled out. Okay, so we double underline at the totals at the bottom. Also want to point out that it's important that we categorize. So we have our assets, then we have our liabilities that we've listed, we have our owner's equity that we listed. We like to keep things lined up. There's a nice neatness about this. You may not have lined paper like this, and it's certainly not necessary, just blank paper, but do your best to try to kind of line your numbers up like that. It's important. Also want to point out the three-line heading. All of our financial statements will have a three-line heading. The first line is always the name of the statement. Excuse me, the name of the company. The second line is the name of the statement, in this case, the balance sheet. And then the third line is always the date. Since we pointed out on the previous slide that the date is always for one day in time. That's listed here. This is for August 31st of whatever year this is, 20XX, okay? It could be for, December 3rd of whatever year it is, but it's for one day and one day only. Now, again, I've already talked about the heading, but I want to give you time to write that down, fill that in your notes. One thing I didn't point out on the previous slide, notice that we don't use dollar signs all the way down. It's implied that these are dollars. So typically the norm is you'll just either use the dollar sign just at the end when you total it, or you use it at the top number and then again at the end. But we don't use it all the way down just because it gets messy. And so again, the single line means subtotal and the double line means to total out. And that's going to be true for all of our financial statements that we do this semester.